Hi, welcome to another video, and today I bring someone very special. He's a friend, very close friend. His name is Brian Kurtz, and I did an interview with him using Skype, and I hope you enjoyed, because I was in Portugal and he was in New York, and we had the opportunity to talk, and so I said, okay, why not, let's do it by Skype. And Brian has been an amazing entrepreneur. He was VP of one of the biggest companies with mail marketing, and I think he's gonna add so much value to you. So check out my interview with Brian Kurtz. So, hi Brian. So I have to say it's an honor to be with you here, and thank you very much for accepting the interview. I think you are in New York now, right?
I'm in Connecticut.
Connecticut.
Yeah, so East Coast, United States, and very happy to be with you too. I think I told you, Ricardo, that for whatever reason, there was one day about I don't know, maybe it was less than a year ago, and I must have gotten 50 or 60 LinkedIn requests from Portugal. And I'm wondering, like, I don't speak Portuguese, and why am I so popular in Portugal, like, all of a sudden? And apparently something that I had done, I don't remember what it was, I had done some online webinar or something. It was some event that got broadcast all over Portugal, and all of a sudden I'm like popular there, and I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I've always wanted to go to Portugal, so maybe I'll get famous there. And then, you know, whatever, I accepted all my LinkedIn requests from Portugal. I don't know if people who went onto my list.
Cool. So they probably saw your background, so we could start from there also. So
yes,
give me highlights.
I'm ready to be popular.
Give me some highlights about your background.
So I spent 34 years. I'm a lot younger than I look. I spent 34 years helping build a company in the United States called Boardroom Incorporated. And what Boardroom did was we sold mostly books and newsletters, paper. These are print products. And we were kind of a leader in the United States in direct mail for the most part. So wow. Physical product, direct mail. I mean, I started in the company in 1981, and I was with the company for 34 years. Became a partner in the company, and I guess just this past year, after a 34-year run of really learning everything about direct marketing and going from the offline business, which was, you know, all print and direct mail, to online, and then back again to offline, we had quite an adventure for 34 years. I probably I don't, you know, it's not a bragging about numbers, but it's, you know, we probably, while I was there at Boardroom, we probably mailed somewhere in the neighborhood of well over 1.5 billion with a B pieces of direct mail. So we did a lot of direct mail, and I think the thing that I always like to say about the amount of direct mail that I did, especially if I'm talking to people who do a lot online, is that the discipline that it takes to create marketing messages and what you have to spend in terms of the cost of direct mail, both in terms of, you know, printing, postage, list research, you know, lists, all the things that go into doing a direct mail campaign, which are not costs that you find when you're doing marketing online. Yep. I think helped me quite a bit in terms of really learning the fundamentals of direct marketing. And I've kind of been, I'll say, a slave to the numbers my whole career. That, you know, that even though I was not a math guy, I was an English major in college, so I just read, and I learned how to read and write, but I didn't know anything about numbers.
So,
and the interesting,
how did you got into management without knowing numbers?
You know what? But I became obsessive about the numbers. That, you know, when you're in direct marketing is all about measurable marketing. You know, return on investment. Every time you either buy media, whether offline or online, it's got to pay out. You don't just buy media and then hope something happens. And so I think that, to describe my career as one that being a slave to numbers for someone who was not really grew up as a numbers person is something that I'm really proud of, because I always surrounded myself with people who really understood those numbers, who really were able to help me with the numbers, so that I made a lot fewer mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes, but I made a lot fewer mistakes because, anytime I bought media, anytime that I wanted to do marketing messages, I was very conscious of the fact that, I really needed to get a return on my investment.
Just to have an idea, how much was the revenue of the company that you?
So when I got there in 1981, the company was probably around somewhere between 3 and 5 million. And then when I at our height, that in the mid 2000s, where we got into all kinds of media in terms of TV and online and all kinds of stuff, we probably hit a height. We never quite got to 160 million. I think it was 157 million was our height, and we did that for about somewhere around 150 million for about 3 years. Then we kind of ratcheted back, under 100 million. I would say during my career, once we got moving, we were probably in the 80 to 100 million dollar range.
Mm-hmm.
When I left the company, we were probably down to about 40 million. But the company was a lot different then. It had changed a lot, and I felt like I really wanted to go out on my own at that point.
Yeah, and do you think, in your opinion, that the company with a revenue like that, almost 160 million, and a company that's doing 1 million is totally different? It requires a different mindset from the entrepreneur. What can you tell us about that?
It's a really good question, Ricardo. I think that, the things that are different, obviously, our size, scope, a lot more, people, a lot more infrastructure, a lot more of that. But the things that are the same, which I find fascinating, now that I went from a company that had as many as 100 employees to now just having a couple myself, I think you really have to be, again, not just a slave to your numbers on the marketing side, but a slave to your numbers on your cost side. And I think that, understanding that, overhead is overhead. And so I think that understanding, what it's going to cost you to run a certain type of your business, what to outsource and what to keep internally, what to keep, and I think that those decisions are the same, 1 million or 150 million. It's just that, you have a lot more of them at 150 million. But I find it fascinating, the management consultants and the coaches that I've had in the entrepreneurial space throughout my entire career, the stuff that I'm working on with those same coaches today, with, I'll say two employees and a bunch of outsourced operations versus 100 employees and, tons of outsourced, is that I have to be conscious of, the money coming in, the money going out. I have to be very conscious of, what it means to grow in an intelligent way, and also, the idea that, once you decide what you need to run the business, that you put money aside, that I know that we're both in a group in the United States that does a lot of launches online, these online launches, and the mistake I see, the good thing is that it generates a lot of money. The bad news is that if you live launch to launch and you don't pay attention to the infrastructure that you need to create to do those launches, and also money management, putting money away so that you can invest and do that, those things are universal no matter how big you are. So, it's a great question. I think that I kind of like my current company that's in miniature. I mean, I'm probably closer now to most of your audience in terms of size.
Yeah, because like, I don't know, 90% of our entrepreneurs in the Portuguese market are around at maximum nine people. So yeah, probably.
Yeah, and so I think though that once you have one employee or two employees, you got to be serious about it. It's not, being a solo entrepreneur does not mean that you're doing everything by yourself. And so, just as when I had 100 employees or 80 employees for the most of my, whatever, understanding what everybody's doing, understanding how to delegate, it's the same if you've got, 9 employees.
Yeah.
It really is. And so I really think that is to understand, the people, understand people's skill sets and what they're good at and what they're not good at, that not everybody's going to be able to do everything. And then you as the leader, whether you're an entrepreneur in, a 9-person $1 million company or 100 people at $100 million, the big thing, and I learned this from one of my coaches in the entrepreneurial world, is that you've got to know what your unique ability is. You have to know what you do best and what you can buy everything else around the corner. And it's not just a matter of outsourcing, it's a matter of not doing things you're not good at and not doing things that you don't want to do. If you can get to a point in your life where, somebody asked me recently, they said, I'm 57 years old, they said, you probably could retire at this point. And of course I said, what's that? What's retirement? I mean, I don't want to retire. I got a lot to do in terms of what I want to contribute and share based on what I've learned for 34 years. But the definition of retirement that I love is that you retire from the things you don't like to do, you retire from the things you don't do well, and you retire from the people that you don't want to hang around with anymore. So on that definition, I'm definitely retired. But I think that, any entrepreneur, I mean, yeah, there's going to be always times where you have to do stuff that you don't want to do. But the more that you can get really in touch with, what do I really do well? What am I really good at? And what should I be spending my time on? And then what should I be outsourcing? What should I be giving to someone else because I'm not good at it and I don't like to do it, and it involves dealing with people I don't want to deal with. So, that won't change. That won't change as an entrepreneur of a company, as I said, of 9 people or 90 people. It just won't change.
That's great message. And one of the things that I had the privilege to hear about you, that you had some techniques to deal about, for example, meetings that I think you called high power meeting. So could you bring us a little bit, because it's like small tactics that can give us like a big empowerment in our companies?
Yeah, it's a really simple thing, and it was invented by my mentor Marty Edelston, who founded Boardroom back in 1972. And I came to the company in '81. Was made a partner, 10 years in, and then together, he and I, with his leadership, I was sort of the entrepreneur with him. He was the founder, but he understood that he needed a partner like me to help him, in creating new ideas and to develop the ones that he wanted to move faster. So what he did was, the story goes, is that Marty went to visit Peter Drucker, who was like one of the most famous management consultants of all time.
The biggest.
And Marty used to interview people like that all the time. And so Marty went to visit Peter Drucker in California, and they were sitting in a meeting, and he said to Peter Drucker, the meetings in my company are terrible. Like, we have a meeting, I try to set objectives, I try to get people to understand what we really need to do in this meeting, and then we walk out of the meeting and it just, I don't know, nothing ever happens. So Peter Drucker just made some comment like, Marty, just have everybody bring 2 ideas to every meeting, no matter what. You can't walk into a meeting on whatever subject without two ideas. And the two ideas don't necessarily have to be about the subject of that meeting, but you have to come to the meeting with two ideas. And what blossomed from that was that Marty started, at that time, was also very, very interested in Japanese management and Kaizen and continuous improvement.
Yeah.
So he combined this idea of two ideas to every meeting with a whole continuous improvement program and invented something what he called I power. And the I is not so much that it's I, the individual, so to speak, but it's actually the I stood for a lot of things that this represented. Ingenuity, ideas. It's really idea power for the most part. But there are just a lot of words that began with the letter I. And basically what happened was we would actually then not only just have meetings where people would have to bring two ideas to, but then we would create what we call just I-Power groups in the company. So we would divide the company and then they would meet once a week or once every couple of weeks. And you'd go into a meeting and everybody would just have to bring in two ideas that had nothing to do. There was no agenda for the meeting except
for
to bring two ideas to improve the company.
Cool.
And Marty ended up writing a book about it called iPower. And what happened was, the people at we'll call it the lowest levels of the company, and I don't mean low in terms of people being treated badly, just they weren't in management. They were just, people in fulfillment and people in customer service and things like that. They were really they were being pushed to think at a much higher level. And in the book, there's one story about a woman who was working in our operation. Remember I said we published a lot of books, physical books, and we had to actually ship them. And the woman was sitting in the shipping area of the company one day, and she realized that there was like a postage threshold that if the weight of the book was 2 ounces less, it would change the shipping cost per book by a significant amount. So she sent in an iPower idea, something like, I know that we can't maybe edit the book, but what if we cut the pages a little smaller and change the size of the book a little bit, and therefore the weight of the book would change, and
so one
thing led to another, and it was hundreds of thousands of dollars that the company saved because of this one idea that she brought to an iPower meeting. And so, you had people come to iPower meetings also that said, we need softer toilet paper, and we need, Scotch tape that's sticky on both sides, or whatever. But then you also had things that were, big as well. And I think it just constantly got everybody in the company thinking about their jobs, their, improvement, because, people get so lethargic in an organization.
Yeah.
And I think that getting something, look, every company has a suggestion box, right? You can always throw a suggestion into a box. But what iPower did is that, it forced people it was almost like a forced suggestion box system. And it got to a point where you had a quota, where you had to put in 2 ideas a week. Whoa. And you think about it, 2 ideas a week is 104 ideas a year. I mean, imagine if you had even 10 employees at, 100 ideas per employee, all of a sudden you've got, some ideas are going to be small. One big idea is just worth so much. So it was as I'm explaining it, you can see how simple it is.
Yeah, yeah.
But, Marty was such an idea guy that he, really wanted to make sure that all of his employees were totally committed to this concept of always bringing new ideas to the table. That's what iPower was. It was not that complicated, but it got everybody in the company thinking all the time.
Yeah, that's way cool. And changing a little bit, you worked for 34 years, I think, in direct mail. And if you had to make like a quick plan for the entrepreneurs, what action steps would you say, or what principles would you say to them that are the key for a good campaign in terms of direct mail? And then we talk about how to complement this with the online world.
Yeah, I mean, direct mail in the United States, and I'm sure in Portugal too, and in other countries that you reach, it's expensive, because you're paying for printing, you're paying for postage. So you have to be very intentional about everything that you're doing when you're doing direct mail. I would not, necessarily recommend direct mail as the entry point right now if I was an entrepreneur starting out. I mean, I'd almost prefer to start out online because it's so much cheaper. However, the thing that I would really say to almost all entrepreneurs who need to get their message out to the world is that, without marketing, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I think that, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in service businesses, maybe in businesses that have a charitable component to them, that they think marketing is evil. That they think that, marketing is something that, you're gonna trick the customer into buying from you and all that. And without marketing, you might as well just give it up. I mean,
exactly.
You've got a mission or a vision you want to share with the world. Why share it with dozens of people when you can share it with millions?
Yep.
So I'm a big believer in getting your message out. Now, where I'm at right now in terms of how I'm teaching direct marketing is that I think you have to be multi-channel. So that if you're online only, you need to think about offline channels, maybe direct mail, maybe print advertising, maybe TV, maybe radio, maybe all kinds of things. But you can't just be in one thing. Now, the thing about direct mail, though, that is still so powerful is that because people are a little bit afraid of it, because it is expensive, because it does take a lot more training to get good at it, that mailboxes are emptier. People, I would say that the least crowded inbox is the one you grew up with. So, the inbox that in the United States, if it's a mailbox at the end of your driveway or in the lobby of your apartment building, it's not as full as it used to be.
Yep.
There's a lot less mail because people are spending less on it. But by the same token, you still need to do it right. You're not going to automatically get responses. And the beauty again of direct mail is that if you do your targeting right, in terms of the list that you mail, in terms of the creative that you produce, the quality of the buyer or the customer that you will get from direct mail is going to be so much better because they're spending more time with your promotion. They're going to read it more. They're going to read it more intensely. The segmentation on your list that you can do in direct mail is a lot more sophisticated than you can do online at this point. So you could also, do things like credit screens. You can not mail to people who have a propensity to not pay, for example. So there's a lot of technology that's attached to direct mail that's not part of the online world. So therefore, the quality of the responses is just going to be better. And so, again, not to replace online with offline, but I think that, doing direct mail, doing it right, is going to give you the quality that you're just not, quality of responses and buyers and customers that you're not going to see elsewhere. Again, we could spend 3 days on the techniques involving direct mail and how to get into it, but I think that it's important for me to stress here, no matter how much of a direct mail proponent I am, I think that it's very dangerous to jump in without really knowing what you're doing, because you can really lose a lot of money very quickly. But I think that the lesson that I'd like to leave with your folks is that while I would recommend probably launching things online and using offline on what I call the back end, once you have your own list, and I mean, once you have a list of buyers and people who know you well, using direct mail to those people is so powerful. You know, imagine if you or I talking to people who knew who we were, who understood our backgrounds, and I was able to write them a letter, and I was able to engage with them in an intimate way in direct mail versus an email. You can see the power of that, and being able to possibly sell them higher priced products, to engage them in high priced events and things like that. And again, I'm not saying that you can't use email for that too. You can, but the engagement, you know, I make a joke sometimes. It's
much more personalized, right?
Say again?
And much more personalized when we get something.
You can do a lot more personalization. You can do a lot more targeting with your lists. People are going to pay more attention if your letter, your copy, your promotion is engaging. People will spend more time with something they're holding in their hands than if they have their hand on a mouse. And so, you know, I always used to say that, you know, people with their hand on a mouse will click off if they're uninterested in 0.6 seconds. I made that up. And that if they're sorting their direct mail over a garbage can, it'll take 1.8 seconds. So I always say you got 3 times the amount of time. I mean, it's sort of a joke.
Yeah.
But still, you know, people are going to spend more time. They'll be engaged. If you can engage them with a piece of direct mail, the level, the personalization, as you said, the engagement level could be so much higher, and therefore, you know, the ability to get a lot more out of them long term. I mean, I did an interview that's on my site that's called "Everyone's Going Right, Time to Go Left." And what it's about direct mail and the power of direct mail, but it's not about selling direct mail to everybody. It's about using direct mail more on the back end of an entrepreneurial business. That, you know, if you have a list, I'll give an example. I had a client who was selling a very, very high priced product, you know, tens of thousands of dollars for a big, you know, it's a big, I don't want to go into details, but it was a very high-priced product, and you know they had maybe 100 buyers of this high-priced product. Now they were trying to get new customers into their list and to try to get them interested in the technology that they were working on to sell this high-priced product. But the first thing that I recommended to them as a consultant was to do a direct mail campaign to those 100 people. You know, direct mail doesn't have to be in the millions. I mean, I said I spent I mailed over 1 billion pieces of direct mail, or 2 billion pieces of direct mail. But, you know, sending out packages to 100 people who have spent a ton of money with you in a 3-dimensional package, we call it lumpy mail. We call it, you know, shock and awe. Dan Kennedy, one of the great marketers, calls it shock and awe. But imagine, you know, you have 100 people who've spent tens of thousands of dollars with you, and you send them a gift, a book, something that's 3-dimensional, that's going to stick out in their mailbox because you can afford to send them something that's costly, maybe even Federal Express it, you know, overnight mail.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you're engaging at a whole nother level. And to think that that's not some form of direct mail is crazy to think that way. But people don't think that way. They think that direct mail is mailing millions of pieces, getting a lot of subscriptions, and doing mass mailing. It still is that for a lot of people. But it really is all forms of that personalized mail. So, you know, one of the things I would recommend to every entrepreneur is to understand whatever list you have, there are no unique names, only unique lists. So whatever list you have of anybody, whether it's your email contact list, you know, getting postal addresses, you know, mailing addresses of your best customers and romancing them and treating them special and all of those things that you can do is just so powerful. So again, I'm not going to be able to do a course on mail in this interview,
but that's very interesting.
I want you people to understand how powerful it is.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. The other day I did a video blog when I was in Hong Kong, and I did that because in Hong Kong there is a street called Mongkok, and they have like tons and tons and tons of advertising, And so I was like wondering, look to that and saying, how can we do something out of the box that we can step up on this? And for sure, in direct mail, it's the same thing, right? We have to step up to get something out of the box that people get realized. But that's a very, very powerful concept that we can, treat better.
Yeah, everyone's going right, time to go left is a great concept, not just for direct mail.
Yeah, for everything, right?
For everything.
For everything.
Look, everything in marketing to me, everything that I've done my entire life, I think I look at the concept of specialty versus commodity is a concept that everybody needs to understand at a very, very deep level, and that diversifying your messaging, diversifying your product, even if it's a commoditized product. So I'll use an example. So let's say in the nutritional supplement world, everybody recommends you take fish oil, right? Everybody says you should take fish oil. And then the first company that developed krill oil, which was another type, a way to get omega-3 fatty oils in your supplement, it was just not to get it, but the fact that they were selling it as, your fish oil may not be as good as this krill oil, which is the new discovery. And then someone else comes up with a fish oil that says, we found in mine in South Africa this special ingredient. I'm making it up. I'm not trying to. You don't want to lie in your marketing. But if you can come up with a way to make a commoditized product like fish oil, I mean, you go to any health food store, I mean, how do you choose what fish oil? But if you could turn that into some kind of a specialty, how it's made, purity, comes from a different fish that has some other property that every other fish oil doesn't have. All of a sudden, you've taken commodity and made it specialty. Or even commoditized products that I'll use at one of my mastermind groups. Someone was a company that did payment processing for credit cards, and it's like, how do you differentiate that? I mean, everybody can process your credit card orders, right? So this guy, we got him on a hot seat, and we said, you know what? If you could create a personalized, 24/7 help desk for your customers that no one else has, and maybe it's going to cost you a little bit more. I know as a marketer, as an entrepreneur, I might pay a little bit more for that specialized service, even though it's a commoditized service, because you've now separated yourself from the commodities. And that to me is a concept that plays everywhere in anything I've ever seen in marketing. And I just don't. Life's too short to be playing in commodities. And commodity. As soon as you realize that everything you're doing is based on price, you're in the wrong business.
Yeah,
if you think that you're in the wrong business.
That's a great message. Great message. And how do you go from offline to online and sometimes go offline again? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's no one trick to it. I think that good copy is good copy, good promotion is good promotion. I think that online, a little bit less attention span. I think if you're doing email, you really have to be just a slave to subject lines. Just like in direct mail, you need to be a slave to headlines and outer envelopes and things like that. So I think that going from offline to online, your best copy is still going to be your best copy. Your best headlines are going to be your best subject lines, that type of thing. Those are simple little things, but in general, I think that you have to pay also close attention to design, and design is so different online versus offline.
Yeah.
The idea in offline, if you're doing self-mailers or you're doing envelope packages, you have to be so intentional and conscientious about, all the different copy approaches that you can use in that medium. And when you're online, to be so careful about, how people are scrolling down a page and how they navigate a page and all of that. It's different skills, but the importance of design doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And so I think it's undervalued. In my last mastermind group, I had one of my guests was a world-class copywriter, but one of my other guests was a world-class designer. And she's a designer in both offline and online. And while some of the things are the same, so much of it is different. As far as going back and forth online to offline, I think that to me, one of the secret weapons of your business, if you can figure out a way to get somebody in an offline promotion, like someone gets a direct mail package or reads a lengthy print ad in a newspaper or magazine, and you can get them to go to an online squeeze page or website or somewhere where they input their email address. To me, that is kind of the place where I think you're going to get the highest quality customer. And now you can, once you get their email address, after you've engaged them offline, think about that. You've engaged them at a higher level, and now you have their email address, so you can inexpensively email them on a regular basis, so that you're not spending as much money, but you've already got that relationship that's a lot deeper than if you start online and take them offline. But in both cases, there's incredible power. So the online to offline, it's powerful because you're getting a new customer fairly inexpensively, and then the offline on the back end is when you can start getting the higher prices. That's when you go to your best customers, you really take good care of your list. If you can go offline to online, now you've engaged with them at a deep level early on, and you can get them into online funnels, you can get them into online ordering. That's going to be and communications. That's going to be a lot cheaper to deliver. The mistake that I think a lot of people make is once they get an email address, they just bombard people with crap.
Yeah.
Because it's so cheap to send email, you kind of lose that discipline that these are real people.
Yeah.
And that they really, and this is what we learn in our launch groups, that why product launch formula I think is so powerful is because you're constantly developing that relationship with your customer or your prospect online before you sell them anything.
Yeah, we are adding value, right?
Yeah, you add a lot of value, a lot of content. So, just because you have an email address is not an excuse to just bombard them with sales messages all the time. So I think that, this online, offline kind of can add to your marketing, I'll call it your marketing discipline, to treat your customers with respect, with that, and really respect that relationship. And that, I'm a believer that, you get a new person on your list, I don't think you should sell stuff to them right away. I think that, you want to find out who they are, you want to survey them, you want to find out what they want, why are they on your list. Anybody who responds, like I do a regular blog, and when people respond to my blog, I try to make it a point to eventually respond to their email and engage with them a little bit. Because now I've got somebody who read my blog, who might have sat through an interview like this, and then what else would they want from me? Like what can I deliver for you? What kind of value can I give to you? And the more I know about that, the more I'll be able to later on sell them live events, sell them courses, sell them things that they really want from me instead of just guessing. So, the online, offline, dynamic is so important, and it all comes down to relationship marketing, content marketing, and I think, God, what a great world it is if you can kind of toggle between online and offline. Based on the preferences of your audience.
I see that it can raise the bar. It can raise the standards of the company, right? So
Yeah, and the quality of your messaging. Yeah.
yeah. So as an entrepreneur, what would be the quality that you would say that is the most important to be an entrepreneur?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of things.
I know.
You know,
Select
one of the
one.
things is, you know, there's a concept that my coach Dan Sullivan is sharing with a lot of people right now, and he calls it the 4 C's. And the 4 C's are, the first C is commitment. So the idea of making a commitment to something, you know, understanding like what, you know, what you think your mission or vision is in the world, or, you know, there's a book called The One Thing that was written recently, and it's a really good book because it's like, what's your one thing? Like, what's the thing that really drives you? And sometimes you have to make a commitment to that. And then the second C is called courage. And courage is kind of the crappy place. You know, courage is when, you know, you've made a commitment to something and you don't know how you're going to get there. And the courage period is when you have to go through, you know, that painful period of, you know, how am I going to get this done?
Yeah.
And then the third C is called capability. So that after you go through the courage period, you start developing a capability to get whatever done that you made the commitment to. And then the fourth C is confidence. Because now you have the confidence that you've gotten through that and that you'll be able to make the next commitment. So it's kind of a...
That's interesting, yeah, like a circle. Yeah,
it's a really great concept, and I've been using that concept from Dan to help me through a lot of new projects because, you know, throwing your hat over the fence and then figuring out how I'm going to get over to the other side to get the hat is that commitment. And I think that, you know, as you think as an entrepreneur, you know, thinking through what you really want to do in the world, what it is that you have that's different than other people, what you can offer that other people can't. And again, it goes back to specialty commodity again.
Yeah.
You know, I think that until you are totally in touch with, you know, what you supply to the world that other people don't, it's very hard to stay focused on that one thing. But I also think that most entrepreneurs also have a problem. Most entrepreneurs are some form of ADHD, attention deficit disorder, and, you know, everything looks good, like they call it the shiny object syndrome. So every new idea looks good to me. You know, I'm always looking at the new idea and saying I should do that, and I'm not really focused on the one that I have to get done. So I think most entrepreneurs need to have people around them who can follow through on things that, you know, they're not going to be good at. And so, you know, I think every entrepreneur should take a test to figure out what their aptitudes are. There's a test called Kolbe, Kolbe, and I think that understanding, you know, that in Kolbe I'm a quick start, which means every new idea looks good to me, but I'm very high on that, but I'm very low on follow through to get the job done and get the stuff done. So having an assistant, having somebody to get the work done for me is critical for me to be successful. So, I mean, those are a bunch of things, but I think that, you know, really understanding what your one thing is and try to stay focused on that one thing as much as possible. And then making sure, and I said this at the beginning of the interview, you know, filling in with people on the outside to help you with all the things that you're not good at.
That's very cool.
I think that's really, really critical.
That's cool. And I saw an expression in one of your interviews about entrepreneur, which sounds me very, very interesting. So could you just fill in the blanks here, entrepreneur?
So let me give it to you from two different perspectives, both from being an entrepreneur, which means that I work inside an organization that the entrepreneur gives me the opportunity to spread my wings a little bit, that the entrepreneur sees entrepreneurial tendencies in me as an employee and allows me to use the resources of the company as if I was an entrepreneur. But then the other side of that is, if you are an entrepreneur, who are you hiring in your organization that has those qualities? Because it's very difficult, I think, for an entrepreneur to let go. I mean, that's always been a big thing. You know, can the entrepreneur let go and allow employees to come up with ideas on their own, to spread their wings, to do their own thing? And I always call it the second rainmaker. You know, the entrepreneur is always a rainmaker. You know, to be an entrepreneur, you have to make rain. You have to get the new ideas. You're the one that's got the vision all the time. Can you deal with someone else in your organization who is a second rainmaker, who you can listen to their ideas as if they were maybe as good as your own, maybe not quite as good, but maybe almost as good, and then work on those as well as the ones that you come up with? So, you know, I was fortunate that I worked for an entrepreneur who had a hard time letting go. I mean, it took a long time before he trusted me to run on my own and do my own ideas. So I had to earn his trust. So I'm not saying that an entrepreneur should just, you know, give up, I don't want to use the word power, but give up responsibility for the rainmaking in the organization to an employee without that employee proving themselves in a variety of ways. That the employee has been able to take an idea, bring it all the way through as if they were an entrepreneur, that they work within a budget, that they were not reckless, that they did, you know, all the things that the entrepreneur would say that, you know, this is critical to the success of the company. Yeah. And so, you know, I was fortunate that Marty, my mentor and the entrepreneur, the guy who founded the company, saw that in me. I proved on a number of occasions that I could run with projects, and then all of a sudden I was running with the projects on my own. And in fact, our biggest successes in the mid-2000s, when we got on TV, were all initiated by me, and yet technically I was an employee of the company. I mean, I was a partner in the company, but I was an employee. But my mindset was entrepreneurial. Therefore, I call that an intrapreneur. Now, when you start building a company from scratch as an entrepreneur, to hire those qualities. I mean, everybody in the company can't be, I think there's an expression, you know, not everybody grows up to become an astronaut, right? Yeah. So you need Indians and you need chiefs. You need people to get the work done, and you need people who are the new idea people. And in a lot of ways, they're equal, as you know, in terms of getting the job done in the company. But to your audience, you know, it sounds like you have a lot of entrepreneurs. A lot of them are smaller, with maybe smaller staffs. But to hire, you know, at least another person, if not more than one, but let's say one person that you're going to grow as a true number two, like a true second rainmaker. I see this time and again when I interview entrepreneurs that they're lonely.
Yeah, that's one of the feelings. That's one of the feelings.
Yeah, they don't have anyone else in the organization that they feel like is going to bring new ideas. And then again, part of it's the entrepreneur's fault, because even if they get one of those kinds of people, they don't recognize the ideas when they see them because they're too, you know, focused on their own ideas. So I think it's an amazing concept. You know, it sounds better than, you know, as far as, you know, following through on it, most entrepreneurs struggle with this one. No, but and understandably, because you're the visionary of your company. You know, why would you trust that to anybody else, right? Right. But if you can start seeing your way through to hire people that do also have vision, I mean, the tough part is that chances are, if they're that good in an entrepreneurial way, they'll probably leave you at some point to go out on their own. Yeah. But you know, in my case, I stayed for 34 years.
That's a long time.
Right. And why did I stay? It's because, you know, I had complete freedom to really work as an entrepreneur, even though, you know, it was not something that I started from scratch. And, you know, I don't. I tend to, there was a part of me many years ago where I used to apologize to hanging out in groups of entrepreneurs and say, you know what, I'm not like you. I didn't start my company from scratch. I did now, but I didn't start Boardroom from scratch. It wasn't my vision initially. But, it became so much my company over time that, I do know that I have an entrepreneurial spirit, and I always had it. Yeah. Maybe I didn't have the 100% risk-taking mindset when I came out of college and when I started working. I wanted to get more of a traditional job, but to really work hard to get the trust of the entrepreneur to become an intrapreneur was probably the key to my success. Whatever success I've had, yep. I really believe that that's my particular success. Now, that's not true for everybody. Some people, the second they get out of school or they stop, they drop out of school because they have to start their own thing. That wasn't me, but I also had in my blood, the entrepreneurial mentality. Yeah, so
there was a calling.
I think on both sides, both as an employee and as a visionary, I think understanding that this could be an exponential way to grow your company is something that I really want people to think about.
Yeah, that's very cool. Very great content. So we are towards the almost the end. But now, I don't know, do you have children? Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, I remember that. So imagine that you only have like 5 minutes to teach them how to be a successful entrepreneur. What would you say to them?
Both my kids are actually pursuing their dream. They're not necessarily entrepreneurs. One is coaching football, American football, and the other is in dance, in the arts and wants to be a professor. And, even if they don't end up with their own business, the fact that they're following their dream is certainly the number one thing.
Yeah.
But I would combine that with a very, very important thing, and I know that you might have interviewed my friend Stu McLaren, who, is an incredible entrepreneur and someone who is all about contribute. The word contribution is one that always sticks in my mind. And, when I've gone through a lot of my own personal development work, I always start with contribution. A lot of people think, oh, Brian, you're so well connected, you know everybody, you just know a lot of people in a lot of different industries and all that. And I don't think that happened by accident. I think that I understood, and this is true for any entrepreneur, that even though you're kind of sometimes feeling like you're on your own and you're a lone wolf, you're not going to get there without other people. So, and other people, it's not just, having their phone number or their email address. That's part of it. But I think you have to contribute to people before you can truly connect with them. So a lot of people ask me, what do you think? And I always ask this of people, what's your superpower? Everybody's got a superpower. And you've got a bunch of them, Ricardo. I mean, both as an entrepreneur, as a martial artist. I mean, you've got a bunch of superpowers. And I think that my superpower is that I've been able to develop very, very deep connections with people and friendships with people over my entire life, my entire career, both personal and business, and they're all together now. I mean, some of my best friends are people I met through business. So how does that happen? And I think it happens because you start with contribution first. How can I contribute to the other person? What can I do for you? What can I do to help you? And I think that even an entrepreneur who needs to be very, very self-focused and driven to their own ideas and to make sure that nothing gets in the way of getting their ideas out to the world, I think you have to start with contribution, whether your vision is something you're contributing to the world, whether the people that are helping you build the business, you're contributing to them by giving them other business. Like, for example, the vendors that you work with to help you move your business forward, giving them other business from other people, for example. Just little things like that, will marry those people to you for the rest of your life. One of the things I was always so proud of at Boardroom is that almost all of the vendors that I had, and I'm talking about printers and computer people, and I didn't change my vendors just on price. I kept the same vendors. I was so loyal. I mean, if they screwed me, I got rid of them.
Of course.
But I was so loyal to my employees, to my vendors, to everybody. And in fact, I just saw somebody on the trip when I saw you in Arizona recently, and I was talking to someone who, in my new business, is a vendor of mine, and I'll be loyal to this vendor, and it's a commodity type part of the business, and I think I'm paying a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I think I mentioned this before. I think I'm paying a little bit more, but I know that if I'm in a pinch and I need a favor, they're going to bail me out.
You'll be there.
They'll be there for me. And so, I guess the advice I would give my kids is like, yes, entrepreneur does sort of imply that you're on your own, that you're alone, that, so the irony is, the kind of the thing, it's like you're alone, but you're never alone. And if you are selfish about how you're contributing, how you're dealing with your outside partners, I think ultimately you'll fail. You'll fall on your face.
Yeah.
And so I really believe that. I mean, I don't know, it was a long answer, but I think I think it's somewhere in there where you've got to really understand that no matter how much it's your vision and your commitment to whatever you're doing, you're not doing it alone, and so you can't be selfish.
That's good. That's a good one. So last question, and you already said some of the things that for sure are a kind of answer, but for those entrepreneurs that are watching this interview and that they are struggle with a lot of challenge, with a lot of barriers in their markets, what kind of message could you pass to them?
I mean, a lot of the stuff that I've talked about, I think that, really love what you do. I mean, there's an expression they always heard that life is short.
Yeah.
I always say life is long. Marty and I used to say, and when I say life is long, you're only going around once, so you might as well be the world's best. So I think that to not think about being, if you can't be the world's best at what you do, or at least strive to be the world's best without making yourself feel bad or guilty or beating yourself up when you don't celebrate your wins on a regular basis. But I think that if you're not focused on something you really love and that really drives you, it's going to be really hard, that when your work is, the more that your work is your play, the better your life's going to be. And I know it's hard. I mean, I'm saying this and it sounds
easy. Yeah.
It sounds easy, yeah. And I understand that you probably have a lot of people who might be, watching this and listening to this who are struggling, to make ends meet, and they want to be on their own, but they have trouble, generating cash and revenue and profit and all of that. But the alternative to work in something that doesn't drive you and doesn't make you feel great, I would just encourage people to I'd rather make less money and do something that I love than make all the money in the world, and really understand that money is really important, but money doesn't buy you happiness. Money buys you freedom, and the freedom is what makes us all happy as entrepreneurs, I think. And so you got to figure out the money piece. You gotta make enough, but you got to be, working in something that you really, really enjoy, that really drives you. And the more you can do that, the better. And I would tell anybody who wanted to go out on their own to really spend a lot of time exploring, what ideally would drive them the most.
Cool.
I don't know, that sounds so corny.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome. It's awesome. Special for coming from a person that has a lot of experience, because it's easy to talk when we heard from someone, but if we have already the experience, totally different. So Brian,
and it's not going to be great. It's not going to be great, 100% from the start. I don't like the term you have to pay your dues and all that, but I do think that, you got to go through that period, going back to those 4 C's. You make the commitment to be this kind of entrepreneur, to sell this product or to do this service, and then the courage period is the period where it's just really, really painful, and it can be really painful.
Yeah. And
then once you get that capability, though, that's what will drive you.
Yeah.
But getting through that period is not always easy. And I would also encourage folks to put money away. That money management, once you make a little money, you want to invest it back in what you're doing, but, keep putting some money away. It's sort of like when you gamble, you play blackjack or something, and you get a couple of stacks of winnings, just put some away. And that sounds conservative, and it sounds like anti-entrepreneurial,
yeah.
But you're not gonna be able to drive your business without something in the back. It's sort of like the analogy is always you're sitting on the airplane and the oxygen mask comes down. You put it on yourself first before you put it on your kid.
Yeah.
Because you can't save your kid without saving yourself. So I see a lot of entrepreneurs, they get a little bit of money and a little bit of success, and then they just don't pay attention to the fundamentals after that.
That's so interesting. That's very interesting, because Bill Gates, when he had the first uncollected bill, he said, no, I have to have reserves at least 12 months ahead. So, yes. And it's Bill Gates, right?
Yeah, it's hard, the kind of people that might be listening to this, 12 months ahead sounds a lot.
Yeah.
I know somebody who I'm coaching who wanted to quit. He was working in a company, very entrepreneurial, wanted to get out, didn't know what the perfect time would be to quit. And, there was no perfect time to quit. But he had created a couple of, opportunities. And he said, I think I've got like 3 months in reserve if all things fall apart. And that's bravery right there. That's courage.
Yeah.
But he did it. But he didn't do it with nothing. I mean, look, a lot of people do it with nothing, and I just have so much respect for those people. He had 3 months in reserve, and now he's, jumped in full. He quit his job. He's working on some key projects, and knowing he's got a 3-month reserve, it gives him the confidence to go through that courage period with this new business. And, I respect that. I just, and I'm going to help him as best I can so that he'll never have to use that 3-month reserve. It can stay in reserve, and that 3-month reserve becomes 6 months or a year.
Cool. So, Brett, thank you very much. Awesome content.
You're welcome.
And I hope I can see you not in USA, but here also in Portugal, like soon.
Yeah, no, I've done a bunch of international speaking in France and Germany, and I like going international. I think I learned so much. I just did a post somewhere to a bunch of people, and I had this whole thing about, I've been a teacher my whole life. My father was a teacher. My grandfather was a teacher. In fact, my father became a principal in an elementary school. I don't know if that's the term you have in Portugal, or the head of the school, like
Yeah.
principal.
Yeah, principal. Yeah, it's, yeah, we call the same. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my father was that, and so when I had 6 months in the business, I started sitting on panels talking to college students about direct marketing, because I really felt like, teaching was in my blood. And then, fast forward 34 years, I'm still teaching. I mean, that's kind of what my new business is. It's all teaching, consulting, coaching. However, every time I teach, I learn. Like, even in this interview, you asked me some questions that I didn't know how I was going to answer before you asked the question. And in the groups that we're involved in together in the United States, I sit in those rooms with some of these marketers, and, I may not be the dumbest guy in the room, but I am not the smartest guy in the room by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, those meetings are unbelievable energy around it, so.
It's incredible, and I think you learn by teaching that you never want to let go of being a lifelong learner, because as soon as you stop learning, I think you stagnate. So right now, my life is very much about, constantly learning while teaching. So there's a lot of people that want to learn from me, and I'm giving as much as I can to them. But I learn when I teach to them, and then, I'm then put myself in classrooms, as it were, not literally, but figuratively, where I'm never the smartest person in the room. And so I would give that advice to anybody. Again, entrepreneur, on your own. Where are you going to get feedback? Where are you going to surround yourself with people, other entrepreneurs who are going to drive you to be the best you can be? If you do it in a room by yourself, you're never going to get to that next level. Yeah. So, I've never stopped learning. I never will.
Brian, thank you very much once again. Thank you for your time. And I hope to see I think in January. I hope, because I think.
Yeah, I'll definitely. Yeah, I'll definitely see you in January.
Yeah, thank you very much.